Welcome back to another MobileSentrix tips and tricks. My name is Derek, and today I'm going to be showing you some products and a repair. Many of you might want to start getting into the realm of soldering, but you're not quite sure if you want to make a huge investment into the equipment that you may need, or you might just think that it's something that would be too hard to learn. Today I'm going to show you that with a relatively cheap Rework station, you can replace something like an HDMI on a console. Today I'm working specifically on an Xbox Series S, showing a full teardown, HDMI replacement, and cleanup of a very dirty console, showing that with even an inexpensive station, you're able to come out with good results. And always, all parts and equipment you can find at MobileSentrix.com. Let's get into the video. Here I have an Xbox Series S. The HDMI port has been damaged and it no longer has an image. It's also a little bit dirty. So I'm going to quickly show you how to take it apart, clean it, and replace the HDMI. The first step is going to be getting behind these two stickers in the corners. And once those are off, got two screws that we can take out. I'm going to be using a T8 screw bit. And then the bottom just slides up and off. You can see how dirty it is on the inside. Next, we'll get out our Torx T10 and remove all of the green screws. Now we'll flip it over, and I'm going to grab the sides, kind of open it up, and it'll just gently fall out. Lean it forward, keeping it open. And it slides up and off. And this is also really dirty. You can see kind of the pattern of the fan there. Very dusty and dirty on the inside. This can't be cooling properly. And that is gross. Those are cockroaches, dead and dried. So hopefully I don't find any alive ones on the inside like I have before. Gross. We'll switch back to our T8. And remove the Bluetooth board. And then it'll pop off. We'll spin it around and take out these three screws that hold down the Wi-Fi board. And we'll pop it off. And this other little daughter board here. We'll slide up and off the frame here. Set it aside. We'll flip it over. And we'll remove the remaining bordering screws, the silver ones. Alright, now I should be able to lift up the power supply. And you can see how dirty it is as well. With a couple of dead roaches. Gross. Ugh. We'll spin this around. Gently pull up on the connector for the fan, and then the fan will come on and off. I'll flip it back over and take out the four screws that are holding the motherboard to the rest of the frame. Now we can flip it back over, lift out this little bracket here. And then the whole unit should come up and out. So far, no live cockroaches, which is nice. Just a bunch of dead ones. And in order to properly work on the HDMI, I'm going to take off the heatsink. Besides, with as dirty as it got, I bet you the thermal compound needs to be replaced. To pop off these guys is pretty straightforward. I'm going to take tweezers, shove them into the side here like this. And lift it up and around like that. Same here. Wiggle it on in. Third one's going to be much easier. And then it should come off. Now I'm just going to carefully lift up the board. The heatsink should fall through. Man, is it dusty under there. We'll properly clean this up. And I count a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that the little fan that I've got going across the room is blowing them around. So I'm going to grab these dusting brushes. It's like it comes in a set of 5. And look at our heatsink. And we'll clean it off into the trash can. You could also do compressed air if you want the dust to go everywhere. Or you can go outside and do it. Do the same with the fan. See quite the difference there. I try to get the bristles in there kind of as far as I can. Kind of help break up whatever I can from the inside. And we'll do the same with the logic board. This side's pretty clean, but I'm just going to give it a good once over. This is the Quick 858-6D Plus. Got a little instruction manual here. Lift it out. Inside this little box, we've got a couple things. A power cord, the attachment for the heat gun, and our soldering iron holder, along with a variety of heat gun tips, reducing nozzles. The setup's pretty straightforward. This can mount on either side, sitting like this, or even reversed like that, depending on if you want it pointing down or pointing up. In this particular case, I like it pointing up like this. You can see it won't slip like this. If I were to have it pointing up on the other side, it slips out. So you want to install this if you want it pointing up on this side, the other side if you want it pointing down. And take out these 2 screws, and then we can screw them back in with the gun holder there. This side, so that it doesn't go anywhere. We'll find the missing pin here so we can line this guy up, and then we'll screw it on nice and tight. There we go. Tip comes protected, and these tips are fairly easy to exchange for others. You just untwist this slides off, get it, and then you can replace the tip. They're pretty universal, but this kit is only sold with this one, which is perfect for the job that we're going to do today. It'll work just fine. We can make it work. There are better tips for the job that we're going to do, but I'm going to show you that you can do it with this setup. For this repair, I'm going to be needing a few other things, and that's going to be wick. I like to use 138 Celsius solder paste in order to help remove the HDMI, and 183 to help solder on the new HDMI. Flux paste, number 225 by Mechanic, having some clean room wipes, a brush, and some isopropyl alcohol, and I like it in these little flux bottles. And to clean off my soldering iron, this brass mesh sponge for cleaning the tips from oxidation. For the next step, I'm going to take some of my 138 Celsius solder paste, and I'm going to pipe it out onto all of the pins on the HDMI here. Because as that solder melts, it's going to mix with the factory solder and prevent me from pulling any pads. And I'm going to do the same on the legs. I'm going to add some solder paste to the legs on the top, flip it over, and let's do the same here on the bottom. And we're going to increase the temperature of the hot air gun basically as high as we can get it to go, which I believe is 500. And we're going to put our airflow, we're going to lower that to about 50%. And we're going to heat up and melt the solder that's on there so that it starts to mix with the factory solder. You'll see it start to kind of come together. And we'll come in and heat it from below. So as you can see from below, even when I add some more solder paste, the heat will eventually melt the solder and then the port will come off nice and easy like that. Add some flux. I'm going to go around and clean it up with some more low melt solder paste to help kind of get into those holes. I'm going to go and shove it through the hole, really mix the factory solder with that, make it easier to wick up and clean. And once the flux gets a little too burnt, I like to clean it off and start with a fresh board. Add some more flux. Come in from below with a heat gun and a soldering iron with a piece of wick and pull all the solder out through the holes and clean it up. You can see how clean and ready those holes are. The pad's nice flat, everything ready to go for the new port. Here we've got a new Xbox Series S HDMI port. Take it out of the bag. Looks good. Go ahead and line it up. Push it on down. I'm going to flip the board over. Now I'm going to grab some of my 183 solder paste. Turn up the temperature for our soldering iron. I think up to about 450 on this. And this is just more or less to anchor the port in place so it doesn't move. We'll add it to the other two holes, so it doesn't want to move at all. Alright, now I'm going to come in from below and really heat up and melt that solder into the through holes a little bit more. Like that. And when I flip it over, you can see that the solder is kind of sucked down into the holes, making it so that it won't move. Now we're going to go and address each one of the pins with the soldering iron. We're going to add some flux. Turn our temperature up on our iron again. The one downside about this station is that you have to adjust the temperature to get it to cool down. Alright, again we're going to take some 183. I'm just going to put a little drop there that we're going to pull from. And I'm going to try not to do too many bridges, but I'm actually going to use bridging to my advantage. You don't want the pins to be bridged in the end, but during the process, if you can move the bridging, it'll help you deposit the correct amount of solder on each pin. I'm just going to be grabbing from the solder pile here, pulling over a little bit of solder, and depositing it on the pins. Got a couple little bridges that we need to go and address, but it won't be too crazy. Add a little bit of flux. And I'm going to take this under my microscope to make it easier for me. So I'm going to wick away some of the excess solder. You have a little bit much here. And I'm going to move the bridge using the soldering iron. I'm pulling it across the pins to kind of help spread it out evenly to get a nice solid amount of solder on each one of the pins. Then I'm going to go back in with some isopropyl alcohol on my brush. We'll clean away all of the burnt flux. Make this look nice and pretty. And you can see here how much solder is deposited on each one of the pins, plenty going down to the pads. You're definitely able to produce a quality solder job even with a cheaper soldering iron. I'm going to install one of the refining nozzles here on the end. From below, I'm going to be putting a little bit of upward pressure on the HDMI just in case it moves. And I'm going to add some more 183 to each one of these legs. Turn the airflow down so it doesn't blow the solder all over the place. It's going to pool up, and as soon as the board is hot enough, it's going to suck down inside. And I'm going to repeat the process a few times. And I do that so that the solder will kind of come up through the other side and really grab onto those legs, make it nice and strong so it doesn't want to break. We're going to get a microfiber cloth and some isopropyl alcohol. And we're going to clean off the old thermal paste. If you want to get picky, you can clean up the bordering, but that's not necessary. We're going to get our silicone thermal paste, and we don't need a crazy amount. Should be good, should be plenty. And we're going to spread it around pretty evenly, kind of like peanut butter on bread. There are plenty of different techniques to applying the any thermal compound, but this one paired with the heatsink, this is going to suffice. Now we'll get the heatsink. We're going to do the same thing. Isopropyl alcohol. And I'm basically just pushing the other thermal paste aside outside of the border of where the chip will go. Just like that. We'll set it in place there. Click in two sides. And then click in the other two. We'll take the motherboard and gently set it back inside. Then nice and secure. We'll flip it over. Keep some pressure on the bottom. And I'm just going to secure it in place with 2 screws for now. Take our fan, line it up, and put it in the connector. Take our power supply. Slide it in. Take the shell and push it on down. Now we can hold on to the whole thing and flip it over. And now we'll just put back all the screws. If it feels like it's biting the plastic, turn it the other direction for a second and it'll line up with the threaded plastic. Make it a lot easier to screw things in that way. For these ones, I always do like a half a turn backwards before I start going forwards. That way I'm not going to create a new thread. It'll be a lot easier to screw these guys in. Start out with a half back turn to find where it wants to go. And then finally we can put back the last 2 screws. And then the stickers. Nasty. So there you go, an HDMI replacement on an Xbox Series S using the quick 8586D Plus 2-in-1 hot air soldering station. So it's definitely worth it, in my opinion, to start somewhere, even if it is with a less expensive machine. Leave a comment below if there's something you'd like to see in a future video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.